We'll have just slight amendment to it. It's just our special guest that we always like to hear from, Taisha, is going to help open the meeting. But otherwise, it should be as it was said. So
I move that we approve the agenda with the addition.
we will
Second that.
that by Anton and a second by Dr. Lane. All those in favor, please audibly say aye. Aye. All those. Thank you so much. Before we get to that portion, we also behind your agenda have a copy of your January minutes. So this was a little bit of a truncated meeting. If you were not there because we had a majority of our discussion time with Portico. And we also had a visitor from IT who talked to us and the Portico representative, Alex, about the interface between what we're doing in community conversations, how that works out with security, talking about consenting in those conversations, all those issues. So you'll see that the minutes are pretty short. Not too much to report back on. Some of it was old business at the end, but just a minute to review those. And when we're ready, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes
Still approve this one.
by Anthony. I almost called you Antoine and I was like, that's not it. That's not it.
We're fine. I know we look alike. I mean.
Yeah. I'm tired, y'all. A second.
Discuss that.
No, please don't. Not on the record. Second by Carmen. Any discussion on this? All right, all those in favor of approving these minutes for January, please audibly say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right. I'm gonna move to public comment. That's
Okay, yeah.
We do have time for public comment, so this is offered during all of our meetings. Most or all of you should know that people can also leave public comment by voicemail. So if anyone has a comment to leave for us, we have a sign-in sheet here at the front, very strategically placed next to the pastries. So if you would like to pick up a pastry and possibly, it's not bribery, it's just offering, leave information. If you're a visitor, you're welcome to. If you are here to leave a public comment, this is the time to do so. I know we have one visitor. I don't know if you're here just to fellowship with us, but if you do have.
Yeah, this is, I just wanted to see what this is about.
Wonderful. Well, for future reference, if there's something that you do want to comment on, you have 3 minutes before the board that you can prepare beforehand, or if it's something that you, maybe it's an event or a community event that you want to share, you have that time. The board doesn't respond to those in the meeting, but we do have a process where if you leave information, we will contact you via email. If it's a question or an issue, then we'll follow up with you until we can find a resolution to that. Or if it's something that the board needs to discuss, we still have a chain of communication, and then we'll talk about it internally and still get it to you. Just for future reference.
Sorry, just for clarification, I know you said you mentioned people can leave voicemails. Can they also send something an email or something in writing?
I don't know exactly. I know that we have our email address that's set up, but I don't know if we have officially made that a place to accept public comment. I think the only official place is via email. I'm sorry, via
Via
voice.
voicemail.
Yes.
Question. Even though they're not going to comment, is it appropriate that we ask the visitor to introduce themselves?
You're welcome to, if you'd like to.
Okay, like-
If not, you do not have to.
Hi, my name's Mary.
Hi, Mary. Hi, Mary. Thanks for coming. Okay, with that, before we get into our council, let me make sure I have the correct agenda in front of me. Before we get to our presenters from the Communication Department for the city, I do want to give Taisha the floor for a few minutes.
Yes.
Oh, perfect.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I hope that you're doing well. Stacy, I didn't have anything specifically prepared. I was just here for support and to answer any questions that may come up. But if there's something that you would like me to um, touch on, please let me know.
Okay, that may be once we get further down the line, depending on how much time we have into some of our newer business.
Perfect.
But with the expert in the room, also that means y'all have to act right in this meeting because Taisha's watching.
No, we don't. Be yourselves, please. Cut up.
Okay, so we'll move on to our next section. We have two communication department employees with us today. Katie has been with us before to help walk us through things like our collateral piece, which has been approved and off to print sometime soon.
It is all as of today.
Already off to print.
She's been in about 3 days or so.
Wonderful. So she's been the one that has helped design that piece, give us guidance on some of the copy for that. And Rand is here as well from the Office of Communication. Is it Office of Communication or Communication Department? Communications. Y'all's offices and departments, I swear. The Communication Department. And I don't know if you want to give context to what came up with the public comment video last week, or where do you want to start on that?
Yeah, so the public comment video, so you all, of course, you all did the public comment video, was that 2 years ago? After the completion of the video, a lot of things changed as far as council and the rules, and so we decided to delay putting the video out. During that delay, we were asked to change the video entirely. And so that's where we came back with redoing the scripts, and then also figuring out how to reshoot the video. And that's what we came up with. Maybe we should do an animation, or maybe we should do some type of voiceover work where there's not people from the board in the video. There's just clips and shots of council meetings, and then there's voiceover work. So that's kind of where we are now. I spoke with Katie and Rand, and we have gone over some options. So the animation piece is very pricey from what they've told me. And that is, it costs far more than what we have for the budget for CEP. So that's kind of where we are. And then, I'll turn it over to Rand and Katie to kind of give some more options on how we could put this video out.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here. Thank you for having both of us. I'm Rand Northam, Assistant Director for the Communications Department. Part of my portfolio is the Raleigh Television Network, the unit of our department that produces all live meetings, especially the live city council meetings, in addition to produced videos for any type of marketing and communications that we do for the city that you would see on our websites, on social media, and so on. I do want to highlight, first, Katie has more background. This is actually today my 1 year anniversary, so still fresh, but getting to know a bit more. But for other background, Katie has certainly got that background for us. I did want to highlight that item of an animated video. One, we do not have staff in-house to produce via animation. That would have to be an external source, and those videos are costly. I think the other thing that this type of video really speaks to as well is to see people engaging with the council if that's the topic of the video. Being a public comment video, I think it would hit even stronger if it is people from our community represented in the video. So those are some of the ideas that we talked about, of not necessarily producing something for a video, for this specific video, but capturing moments at council meetings of community members engaging with the council at public comment sessions that we can shoot specifically. So it's not the higher shots that you would see on a live stream, but it's something that our producers could come and and shoot specifically for that and then piece that together. And then we could also help with the script as well, and assist in what you all would like this video to say. I think this comes at a very timely moment as well, as the council talked at its retreat and has been talking over the last couple of weeks at their meetings about this very topic. So I think this is a very timely moment for this discussion. So we're here to help with any other questions you have about seeing this to the finish line and putting together a piece that would be something that you want to see, something that the community would find helpful.
And I think everyone, for the most part, was here, maybe not, Shar was here in the moment, when we shot that video. The intention of it was to be like an approachable information, an approachable information guide to how to leave public comment, what the background is, how to make citizens feel more prepared to do that. Maybe you weren't either. But to be able to feel like you can go present yourself, and be prepared for the fact that you may have different circumstances, there may be a lot of people in the room, you may have a different time limit, but that was the hope. And then I believe Anthony and the outreach team created that script, because it does have a lot of like how-to, step-by-step on how to do that, and again, in a very approachable way. And one of the things that this was, that this came to light in the council meeting was because there was some reference to public comment, and I didn't even watch it. I don't know if Dale has it, but council actually went back and used the poll that we did during that time to reference public comment as well. So this is just maybe an affirmation or reaffirmation that the work that we did was important and that was useful. Maybe it's 2 years later down the line, but it is an important issue still. And to Dr. Lane's point, as he's been really persistent in making sure we don't lose the thread on public comment, that work remains sort of evergreen, and it's important. So I just want to make sure that we're not, that we are encouraged by the fact that a lot of labor was put into that and is being referenced and used today. So any questions about the video?
Just, let's we've been dealing with this public comment issue for a while. It was more of an issue in the last administration, and now I don't know if it's developing into an issue or not. But one of the challenges was this time period to speak 3 minutes, 2 minutes to 1 minute. Okay, that's at the discretion of the mayor, so we couldn't set that. But I think the challenge was to have some equity in individuals that wanted to speak, because some people are good at speaking, some aren't. And so that the work of the guide, not just to look at a video, because we won't have everybody that look at a video, but to use that script maybe as a handout, a little pamphlet that they can read a little quickly before they go through it, to kind of help on their presentation. So that approach that you show up and all of a sudden you got a minute and you had 3 minutes written out, is a way you can deal with that. And watching people at city council meetings that dealt with it, they use an outline type method, that they can go through the outline real quick and they can come back to that outline and highlight each one of those topics. So at least they got their points across and then come back. So there's approaches on the way that it can be done. But again, I'm still seeing this as the sacrifice of the residents. Each time we prolong this is to help them improve the quality of their engagement and their comments and transparency. So again, it's a slow turtle that, we need to fire underneath, but it doesn't help what we want to do with the community engagement process. So as we work on these things, that's what I'm watching. So if you can help us with that, we come up with some ideas, we come up with script, we just need to get it done. So how can we get that done?
And I will share too, so the city clerk is in charge of the language that's shared on the city websites, the public comment page. We, of course, help implement that language and get it on the website and review it, but it is the city clerk's function to publish that there. And I think the consistency is is one thing that you're speaking to, making sure that it's the same on the website as far as in addition to handouts that are possibly given as well. And so keeping all those in mind, but I would direct those comments to the city clerk as well, because that is their area, for the public comment, page. And anytime the public reaches out for submitting their names, and they get an automatic response to say, we've received your submission, and it has some direction and some language on that. So that's all in the city clerk's office.
Are you saying that there's something that this committee needs to do to recommend something be done by the office to the council or directly to them?
It sounded like a disconnect. I think you were saying that we want to provide information and as much preparation for people as possible in order to speak, including the video. We've talked about having a handout, and you are saying that there needs to be consistency in the information that's put out by the city so that people can be prepared as well.
Yes, and I just wanted to be clear that the communications department is not the department that is creating and crafting the language that then goes to the public for when they sign up for public comment, for when they visit the website. We are assisting in that, but it is the city clerk's office that crafts that language, that puts that together. So that language would need to go to the city clerk's office, and we can assist with the language to make sure it is clear and the same in all places, and help with that process. But it is the city clerk that leads that effort.
I do, yeah, I'm sorry.
So I hear you on the animation costs. Do you have the ability to do a voiceover so it's not individual voices? Could we use stills from images from the council, maybe use like a little Ken Burns effect, scan across them, instead of trying to recreate what we did before, which had real people standing there talking? And it's not that I don't like that, it's just that becomes a series of complications and I think slows things down. Whereas maybe a series of stills that show the inside of the chamber and what's going on, and people standing there and somebody at the podium, and you could add movement just with the image, and then have that voiceover there. It seems like that's a shorter path to a finished product instead of getting all the cameras and the video and the lights and everything back into the production piece. Because, you know, I mean, I'm a fan of animation and light animation. I'm not expecting like Disney cartoons, but you know, the light animation where you actually have just some simple movement, and have done a couple of those. But it seems like this is a good opportunity to back away from any individual or person and have a broader sense. And maybe that's a way to do it.
Yes, short answer is yes, that is definitely an option.
And I'm reading your script, and I know that there's some edits we can make based on some of the comments we noticed, because in here you guys talked about, we specifically named like the 3-minute window. I know there's some discussion around some of the media usage, and we do have some of y'all who spoke specifically about what you could bring to present to council. So we can clean some of that up. And certainly if y'all would like to shift from all the different voices speaking to just one, we can do that. If you want it to be one of y'all, we can do that. So just, there's options there.
So what I'm hearing, and I think this is kind of, there are actually two processes at work. One is the development of the content to ensure that we have the alignment to support resident development, right? Skill building for residents. That sounds like it's a different process than we utilized before. So I would ask Dale to sort of check in, like, at what point could we have brought the clerk into the conversation? And let's revisit that part of the process to ensure that we see a heavier lift out of it this time around, because we did the MVP version. So now let's do, figure out what the improvement is. The second portion is the creation piece. So I just want to make sure that we're recognizing that there are two processes at work, so that we don't work at cross purposes, in the sense of, like, at some point we have to have a conversation with the city clerk and their office to figure out how we create all of the alignments, like what are the ways. And then this, I think, supports the sort of meta experience of us being community engaged in the community and figuring out some of that process piece, because that's been missing in the work that we've been doing. Just in the sense of, like, really finding how we create the coalitions to make the changes happen. So I just want to make sure that we're distinguishing the two processes and recognizing that in some ways we didn't have everybody at the table that we needed the first time around. That's what it sounds like to
But
me.
I think we did. So
Okay.
two things. One, I think we did, because this script was created, it was approved, it ran through comms twice. Maybe before we shot it and they handled a lot of the production. So I don't think we missed the mark on what we were communicating. And it wasn't outside of what is communicated by the city on the website. So I don't think we missed any mark. If we did, then they would have caught it on their end, the clerk.
If I may jump in to add
That's
some
fine. That's
context.
what I believe. Second, the other thing I wanted to say really quickly is to make sure we're keeping a tab on whether this is a discussion about creating a new video or editing the old video, because I feel like there's two different discussions going on. So I'll let Taisha chime in as well.
Yeah, I just wanna, in full agreement with you, Stacy. So I think we cross channels a little bit. So the community engagement board used the rules that the city clerk has around public comment, which I've said, one of the changes since then has been now, if there's X amount of speakers, then the website shows how much time that they will have so they can prepare for that ahead of time. So there is no, you're correct, Stacey. The information that you all wrote your script around was based off the rules provided by the clerk's office. So you all don't have to go through a different process to work with the clerk's office. We'll take the same approach in understanding what the rules are, and then you all created your script around that.
Thank you.
So then, just for the next few minutes, I do want to open up, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'll just, I had a chance to see the video or the original script that was created before I joined the board, but I know we're talking about animation or potentially shooting a new video, but is an opportunity just to use some public comments from council meetings as kind of B-roll, as a cheap way of getting around that?
I think that's what's in the video.
That's what's in the
Or
video.
some of it. So some of it I think is B-roll just from different council meetings. Some of it is like the actors in the video standing in council chambers where you would stand if you presented, and sort of mimicking or giving some visualization to what that looks like. So some of it is just kind of passing, some of it's direct.
Okay.
As, step one, step two, step three go by. And you can send that video around. I've seen that video so many times. I'm like, I don't know.
And to kind of bridge the gap between the still photos and the idea of public comments, that is kind of the vision that I was speaking to, is to not big lights and big production, simply getting one of our video producers into a public comment session. And it could possibly even be shot from behind the speaker to not directly identify them, because sure, they're speaking at a council meeting, but do they also know that then they're then going to be in a video that's going to be played for this purpose? So maybe we take that approach and shoot from behind, so it's the back of the head, and you see council members rather than the face on of the speaker. So there's some options of getting around that, and that's a small lift to kind of bridge that gap between a full production of getting everybody back in and scripting it and all that, and still shot. We have that ability to kind of meet in the middle there.
So I'm gonna pose a question, I think, to the board about that decision between reshooting, whether it's portions of it or the entire video to redesign it, or making amendments to what we have. And that might include voiceover instead of what we have, because there were the real life people speaking and that's, part of the reason why we need to reshoot it, and making amendments to things like the time limit. Yeah.
I will say that personally, I don't know that I feel like I need to make a decision, because I felt like outreach really spearheaded that particular effort. So I'd like to ask if outreach would be interested in picking that up and potentially folding in other folks that have a specific interest in that project to make that, because it sounds like it's just an in the weeds conversation.
Well, we discussed it at the last meeting briefly, and that's where the idea of the animation came in, but it was really more about Anthony shared the script again to confirm that it was in line with what we needed and what edits needed to be made. But I think we've been ready to have this edited for a minute. So, but knowing that we have the option to do different, to shoot different parts of it, really up to forward if that's what we want to do, because otherwise outreach is, as far as I
We can, we can edit the script and, go from there. I mean,
and I'm posing that as a question. That's not me saying that's what we should do.
So maybe I'm trying to make a motion that outreach engage with communications to develop the next product.
outreach would like a little bit of direction towards the streamlined process. I mean, if everybody's happy, I mean, to me, I see this as a good opportunity for a voiceover and some combination of video and stills to show a complete picture and let that be that. I mean, I think we'll redo this in 2 years either way. I don't want to put a lot of time and effort and energy into the creation. I'd rather put the time and effort and energy into the promotion. Because a lot of people watching a product that's 80% there is better than nobody watching a product that's 110%. So I really want to try to, and I feel like we could do a really good job with that combination. So that's what I would grow sitting on outreach. If everyone else is good with that, we can start working in that direction.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I probably want to hear what Mom has to say, but I was gonna ask if Anthony could just make a motion and do whatever it is he just said.
Motion to do what I just said.
Not that good of a secretary, so I don't know what it was. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I have, a list of edits that I think you guys talked through with Dale that you provided before the last round of some of the changes that were made, and I don't know if this is overstepping, so someone let me know if I'm breaking rules. But I'm happy to work with Dale on maybe just reworking and providing y'all a storyboard based on updated things that we all know have changed and the feedback that I've gotten from Dale. And I'll just change a little bit to how we storyboarded comms, which is a 2-column document. One will be your script and one will be, the other column will be the visuals to align with the pieces of the script. And I think a lot of that we'll find will just be the B-roll from different public meetings of public comment that we have. But then we could identify any areas where graphics and other things we need to pop up. And then I could provide that back to y'all through Dale for you to review and approve, and then we could just move forward there with making your video. I feel like that's what I'm hearing everybody wants to have happen. And I can help with the storyboard and script based on the feedback and comments I know you guys have already provided, so that you don't have to do that again.
And I always want to be sure that this product that we're producing for the public
Yes,
is what they will use. not what
absolutely.
we-
I'm right there with you.
So even thinking in my mind saying, hey, this could be fun.
Mhm.
We could be presented in such a way they can enjoy something and learn it and not go over their head.
Yes.
So to always keep it in that.
I want to
realm.
use the same language that y'all already wrote, which I think is very approachable, as much as we can in in the new version of your script.
I think the only thing that doesn't fit necessarily is the 3-minute.
Right, exactly. I don't think there's a lot of
other than that,
tweaks. Absolutely. That's
And-
what I'm saying. I'm happy to kind of reformat that for y'all in the new way that we're talking about doing it. And then let you review it and approve it so that you don't have to do more work.
I mean, I think that's awesome. And really, I think less complicated and getting it out the door and us putting our time and effort and energy into getting it promoted.
And I can do that fairly quickly for you guys, because I know you're ready to move forward and have this out to the public, so.
Cool. So I don't know if we need a motion on that. I mean, continuing resolution.
I'm happy for it to just be an action item because we don't really have to decide
I
much else
don't
until it
think we
comes
need to
back.
vote on that. Yeah.
Get that to Dale as soon as possible.
Any other questions for Katie or Rand or anything we've talked about communication wise, which I don't think is much else aside from the collateral piece? Alright.
Very cool.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank y'all.
Thank y'all for coming.
We're here filming.
Perfect timing. We're gonna move to our council update from our city council liaison, Councilman Jones. You have the floor.
Good afternoon, everyone. I don't remember, this is the day that I do like a lot of my work. And I don't remember if we updated last month, but I am still your official liaison. So you're stuck with me for another 2 years. And, I've gone to 8 boards now, so I hold, a lot of boards, but it's my passion. So please do not feel bad. This is what I love to do. And so I'm really excited that the mayor entrusted me with being able to talk and uplift so many voices, because my commitment is to be there as often as I can. I don't know how you liaise without being there. So you will continue to see me. I do want to touch on, public comments, because that's been a really big issue, within our discussions, within council retreat and then our meetings. I do want to highlight the work you guys did, and we were able to use that. There were 4 different things that came through from our retreat, and it had to do with time, the exact time of the meeting, which is what we referenced in your survey. And I'm so appreciative. Counselor Patton brought that up, and Taisha was able to come to that right away and show that not only was your survey, did it say that they wanted it at 7 p.m. and not 6, because that was the specific question. But when asked what the percentages were, we showed that it was 73%. So the whole conversation of us moving into 6 o'clock was pretty much shut down at that point. So I really appreciate your work on that. And it really helped amplify what we wanted, what you guys wanted, what the community wanted to see in that. We did talk about digital media. Digital media will no longer be shown on the screen to the public. It will be emailed to council. So if somebody would like to share a video or share a presentation for a stormwater concern, they will be able to submit it and it will be emailed to us, but it will no longer be shown live. That vote ended up being 7-1. I felt that for one issue, we were sacrificing other people to be able to present and show and explain their concerns visually. But that vote went 7-1. So that has been removed. And the last thing that we added was a explanation, kind of like what Stacey did at the beginning, saying we will not respond. Because that's becoming a big confusion for some members of the public, because there are some things that will get responded to and then other things that won't. And that got really confusing. So now not only will it be in the email or on the website as you sign up, but every meeting at the beginning of it, like we did last night, Mayor Cal will make an announcement. We just like you guys do here. So those are the 4 things we discussed in there. The time limit is the last thing that we still have not decided. And that was because the motion to limit it from 3 hours to 2 hours failed. But as was noted that evening, that vote is coming up again on Tuesday. So there are about 3 of us who say we found the sweet spot. You know, we have the data. And in addition to your survey, we looked at every council meeting over the last year, and we've never been there longer than 1 hour and 45 minutes. And so to limit the time to 2 hours from 3 hours just felt performative to me. So you'll hear some of us, if you watch that at that meeting, we will say that, both at the council retreat and at the council meeting. Others don't agree, and that's democracy. You know, democracy says that people can agree, and you have 5 votes and they got it. So that vote is still upcoming. So I'm not sure. The 4th person was Councilor Fort, or Mayor Pro Tem Fort, who voted against 2 hours because she wanted it to be 1 hour. So that's where it's lying. I don't know if it's going to go down to 1 hour, if the other 4 councilors will agree with her, or if she's changed her mind and it will go 2 hours. But either way, it will not be voted to 3 hours. So that time is coming down. So I just wanted you guys to be aware of that work and what we're discussing here. Other big discussions that have happened at council. Actually, I want to talk about the retreat as well. We had a really big conversation about annexation and growth. And so at council, we got next meeting, a 262 acre parcel that is looking to be annexed into our state of Northeast Raleigh. And as we talked to 6 different department heads, and that included fire, water, transportation, police and all that. And they have really big hesitations with us continuing to add large swaths of land like that in our sprawl. And so that conversation began to happen at our last meeting when we set the public hearing for this upcoming discussion. But definitely want to hear, you guys' thoughts. What we heard from staff was that it's about services and how do we render those services, whether that's in emergency situations for fire and police, or as I spoke to our solid waste director afterwards, he said, in emergency situations, I get it. It's important. However, if you add, let's say, 8,000 units, and we as solid waste have to do, that's 24,000 touch points that we have to add, and a staff that is just barely getting to, current, levels that we set 10 years ago. And so those are the things that when we talk about growth and annexation, it's not just about, oh, do I like a big tall building? Because yeah, I love big tall buildings, but if I can't service things, then what? Then I'm not doing my job and making sure that we're spending your tax dollars properly. So I think that's a really important discussion as you guys are communicating with the community. That's something that will always be. We're always gonna have that. It's not ever gonna stop. We're gonna talk. So those are the two things I wanted to bring up. But
Yeah, I had one comment on this annexation. In the southeast Raleigh area where our CHC is an area that's growing. And because they'll put 540 will come around from Nightdale at 840. So I see, and we've already had some places. So the issue that we see with not just the annexation, but with growth and development is partly what you're saying. Infrastructure does not keep up with it. And so therefore, quality of life would decrease once all these things are added and everything is not aligned. Roads are not widening, bus station, lights, housing, certain restaurants, things like that. All of that is not aligned, so you struggle with that for 5 or 10 years until something develops. So in the planning part of it, what you're talking about, the annexation is a big thing in my area that we watch. Because of the infrastructure is killing us. It's not there. It's partially there because the developers can widen the street in front of where they're at. But then there's a gap next, it'll go back to 2-lane road and then to the next development. That just kills you.
And what I loved about our discussion is that we did discuss that when you go out and you've got single family homes, that adds to our, we can't sustain it. It's revenue negative in that point. So when we talk about high rises and we talk about growing up, that's where we can make money. That's where we can really start to put money in the bank for your taxes. And that's why there is some discussion about growth and going up. So it's really, how are we daylighting that conversation? How are we making sure that everyone understands the pros and cons of both? The pro, because community may want single family homes and all that, that's great. And then we have these big annexations, but all of our departments are saying we can't handle that. And now we have to take a step back and go, whoa, wait, okay, what do we do? And this is part of the conversation that I want you guys to really know that we are having, but I need you guys to information or ideas as we discuss. Yes.
So in some of these areas and, living where I am, where I can, walk outside the city of Raleigh pretty easily. There's a lot growing up, on the other side of the county road, which I don't even think some of that area is ETJ. I think it's somewhere in the lost space between Raleigh and Garner. With areas like that, who covers their services? Because there's no wall up. I mean, if something's happening in one of those neighborhoods, I'm sure, much like the incident we had recently in our neighborhood, there's going to be police officers from the whole of Wake County. Are we stuck in some ways when things like that grow up, covering them, whether we're, not covering them fully, but covering them in some capacity? If there's a fire, we're going to send the fire department. If there's police, we're going to send, if there's an incident, we're going to send police. Are we covering them almost regardless? I mean, I'm always curious about the balance there between.
And the answer isn't always yes, to that. Sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no. Sometimes in ETJ situation, our fire station might be closer than their assigned fire station, in which we have mutual aid conversations and agreements, and then it becomes whoever's first. So it does happen. I don't know that that is the heaviest concern of that because we have those mutual aid agreements.
Yeah, I just didn't know if we were covering in some form or fashion some of these things that are growing up on the exterior, regardless of whether or not they are City of Raleigh.
And sometimes, yeah. So the answer is sometimes, but it would be a case by case basis on where that is. The one other thing that I wanted to bring up, and then I will stop, is that we had a discussion about boards and commissions. And what we discussed was, and I brought you guys up, I said, some of our boards don't know the scope of what we're expecting of them. And they haven't been here for long enough for us to rely on, years and years and years ago. And we need to sit here and define it. And so we opened the door to that conversation. And what I'm doing now is going to these boards. I went to RHTC this morning and saying, give me your feedback. What do you want? How do you want this relationship to work? let's just pretend that we're starting from zero and tell me what you want and how do you feel represented? Because we made the point that other than the yearly work plan, we don't have conversations if you don't have a liaison that's there all the time. You know, and so how are you feeling excited and wanting to participate if you're here and you never see anything that you say come to the council table? So I'd really love, over the next, we don't have a timeline on it. So I want to be able to reach out to all of my boards and everybody else that's tapped to do the same with theirs and say, what do you think and how can we develop this mission together of where we want to go? And then bring it back and have that conversation. There are some boards they want to consolidate. And that's like Raleigh Historic Resources and like Raleigh cemeteries, you know, historic cemeteries. There are some things that they want to find some commonality so that we can uplift some boards that we haven't been able to get off the ground yet, like our African American Affairs Board. And that has to do with the fact that DEI holds a lot of boards and commissions and they're just going through a turnover. And so what I don't want the community to feel is that it's a lack of want on our part. It's a lack of resources and how can we make sure that it does and what it's supposed to do, what it's wanting it to do. So I want you to know that conversation's happening. I would love to, and Stacy, I think if you and I can, we'll set up another chat so we can discuss how we can gather input from the board to begin to share to the council as to what we want the future of this board to be, or any board, not just this, it's all boards we're doing this with. Then I would really welcome that conversation. Yes, ma'am.
So, in the discussion, does the council, I guess, have a foundation, a set of foundation of what they would want each board to do?
That is what that, right, and so that's what we're working on as well. I say that, but the frustrating part of these discussions, we can see it, have it at our city council retreat, but we never talk about it afterwards. And so it's, when I say, well, then where are we gonna have this conversation? Our council meetings are pretty much decisions. So you go to a council meeting not to hear a discussion by us, but to watch us make decisions. And those decisions, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, should be based on our committees that never meet. And so when I tell you, yeah, we want to start this, I want to say to you, yes, we're going to build a foundation. I just don't know when, because our first transit and transportation committee meeting is this month. And that's the only one that's meeting this month. And so I don't know how I want it to be what you're saying, is that you build what you want, we build what we want, and then we have a conversation as to how do we meet in the middle. But I can't tell you when we're gonna have that full conversation as a body. And so I'm working on that and I will keep you updated. But please keep holding us to the fire in that, because right now it's like we're putting everything, it feels like we're putting everything on the boards to make these decisions, but I don't know when we talk about it. Yes, ma'am.
You said something that, why don't the board committees meet?
So I've asked that over the last 2 years. The reason I've gotten is that we only meet when something is sent to us. And so I pushed back and said, can we just make it a standing meeting? And if you don't have something that's been sent to us, can we talk about transit and transportation and just have an open discussion about what we want to see in the future? And no one agrees with me. So I would need 5 votes in order to make that a mandatory meeting, even though it's set aside every single month. So it's on all of our calendars every single month. Unless the chair of that board calls a meeting, we don't meet.
Is there a rule in the cities?
So the rule says the chair decides. So it needs to be the chair's decision to meet. And right now, the chairs have said in the past, I can't say the chairs now because they'll all just shifted as well. In the past, it's been, well, we only do what's sent to us. So you'll find, I'll try and send all these conversations. Be like, hey, let's talk about this rezoning here. And let's talk about this conversation. Downtown safety was a big one. We talked about Safe Vibrant. We did that for 3 months and never met again in 2 years. So those are those things that I want to be able to use those committees for this purpose. And I just need joint agreement with 4 other counselors to make that happen. And I don't have it yet.
So one more question.
That point you made about the committees waiting for something to be said was something that I'll talk to other committees about. I don't think because of the guidelines that we were given, there's stuff that we could work on that we didn't have to wait. We put a section in there to get requests from the council that we can act on them. But our action plan spells out, then we want to do so. these others, and plus your bylaws. So I don't know, maybe that all needs to be reviewed, because if your bylaws are written, and we've been looking at bylaws for other commissions and other things, and we see that some have set information about when they're gonna meet and some don't. So I don't know if some uniformity, but that is an area, sound like it really does need some review.
Right, and that part is being, hopefully, I think staff is helping us, just round up what all that information is. Because as newer counselors, if we've been doing it for 2 years, I don't know what, the Board of Adjustments was first to get created for. I mean, I do, but for that example, I don't know what the purpose was and have we fulfilled that purpose? Are we done? Were they only supposed to be for the task force time? Were they supposed to be this long? That's being in review by staff, that the technicalities such as bylaws and things like that. But again, where are we having this full conversation? When do we sit here and go, okay, this is what our boards and commissions have said. This is what staff has said. This is what we want. And I don't have an answer for you as to when that meeting is happening. So it does feel like we're all rowing different directions. And I'm trying to get it centered, but I will keep you updated if it gets any better on my end. Just want you to be informed. Thank you, guys.
Give Taisha the last word on this before we move on, and keep in mind, on the agenda, we do have time to discuss this at the end of this meeting, so don't want to push us to where we don't have time for that, but I'll let Taisha respond.
Thank you. I just wanted to state that the point that Councilmember Jones made about bylaws and work plans, as of this morning, all bylaws and work plans of every board and commission is on their individual webpage. And then this Friday, there'll be some information sent out via the city manager's update that consolidates all that information. So we can also share that with you all. The city manager's update goes out on Friday and we can get it to you.
Thank you for that, Taisha. Okay. I think this rolls pretty nicely into some of our committee work, especially since some of us are digging into bylaws. So I'm going to let the equity committee go first. And if you flip to, thank you, the last page of the packet that has your agenda on it, you have the equity subcommittee meeting minutes. And I will hand it over to equity chair to discuss.
Yeah, I'm actually just gonna be brief because I feel like we can be. So we spend a lot of time talking about the purpose, and you'll see several bullet points that sort of capture some of the reflections or thoughts that we had. These are not technically approved minutes, so other subcommittee chairs, please feel free to resist. There are a couple that seem to stand out, and one that I'll lift up because I think it captures the initial spirit of us starting the journey, is that so many of us being the four of us that were in the room, felt that doing big things for the citizens of Raleigh was really important, and just something that kind of resonated throughout the entirety of our conversation in a variety of different ways. And while maybe we didn't always see that as what was literally happening from moment to moment, we were able to identify some things that were going on that felt oriented in an appropriate direction to meet the purposes that we see. We know that there's a lot of work to go forward on, but again, and I think Dr. Lynn, you brought it up in a very lovely fashion. We have bylaws and we have an approved work plan, and so I think we came to sort of a consensus at the end. It's like, wait a minute, what are we waiting for in terms of what to do and how to be? And that felt like a really important moment in terms of our conversation. And then I tried to convince Lashara to be board secretary, and that did not work. It was an active campaign because she's the only person that would be eligible. And then we started one of the questions that sort of came out of January for me, and then we started to touch on it a little bit, was discussion guide and how do we support people in participating with Cortico. And this happened, I see it on the agenda. It just like equity fully and full-throatedly supports a project kickoff, as was suggested by our staff liaison last night. And then we had no questions about the board meeting except how to get here. And we know that TODA has not met since later part of 24. So that's the Transit Oriented Development and Housing Committee, which actually maybe Taisha, actually, I might have messed it up, but Taisha is on that committee, and it's comprised of several other department managers that are working on distributing the public project community support funds. And so we're still fleshing out getting into the nitty gritties of the specifics of outreach, but that's or the plan to assemble the action governance team, which includes portions of outreach, figuring things out. So we're still in the midst of that. But they are anticipating that they'll be moving in Marchish kind of on things. So we're trying to make sure that we're syncing up with that.
Taisha, do you have anything that you want to add from the TODA perspective on PPCSF? But I guess not, 'cause I don't know how Dale works this machine. So we're just gonna leave it, but if you do, let us know. Thank you for that. Any questions, comments for equity before I move on? Perfect. Next is policy. We met for the first time after a little while as well. And those minutes are sort of freestanding ones. Our main point of discussion was at some point when we were talking about, we had a motion about amending, our meeting regularity, and that sort of turned into what do our standards for attendance look like? And so there was a point last fall where it was asked to be kicked into the policy committee to come up with recommendations, assess some other board and commission bylaws to see what they do and see how we can assist from a sort of operational standpoint. So majority of that discussion of our meeting was based on our bylaws, and we'll talk about that amendment in just a little bit. But there was a motion made to amend the bylaws regarding attendance. We also talked about the onboarding process for new board members. And this was also a really great discussion about what are we doing, why are we doing it, and why are we asking people to be a part of it? And Dr. Lane, Carmen, Antoine, don't let me lie about anything here, so please jump in. But we talked about sort of bare bones of what an onboarding process could look like for us. And that includes like very direct communication between the clerk and the department, community engagement department, so that they know when we have a new board member. And then that board member having contact Dale and myself so that they can get kind of basics that they need as board members, plan their training. We can meet to talk about, what are current issues that we have going on, all of those things, touch points, to create a more transparent and fluid onboarding process. Part of that discussion was also about time commitment, like what the expectation is for new board members. And we sort of followed that trail down and then followed it right back up to the idea of the information that's on the application to apply to be a board member. And so nowhere on that application does it say anything about any expectation of time or specifics on how often you meet or what the expectations to meet are, any of that, which I know can be labor intensive on the front end because that would have to be for every different board. But having some sort of conversation about making sure people know what they're signing up for in essence, and that it's a, whether it's really a working board or if it's something different. So we talked about that. We got some good insight from Dion, who is our newest board member, since she has just freshly been through this process and what would be helpful. And then what else did we talk about? Oh, so this was also asked for the policy committee to take up was what our response to things like what Councilmember Jones said, if there's an issue or a topic that's coming up for council that they or she would like to have any public input on. She says, I would love for the board to discuss this. what the process for us discussing that actually is, because we haven't had one. So we kind of made one up in the rapid response, under the rapid response umbrella when public comment came to us. And so it was asked for the policy committee to look at what that process actually is. So we talked about kind of mirroring the rapid response process that we've had, which is sort of hear the issue, assess it maybe in committee. I don't remember, but this is exactly how we did it. Bring that to the board discuss and vote on something, and that's a recommendation that goes somewhere. So whatever that is, we didn't talk fully about it, but Carmen made the recommendation to use that rapid response as a framework for how we respond to things kind of in the moment, not just big current issues. I think that's it.
We kept extending the committee meetings so we could finish. So it felt like the old original.
I have PTSD.
Engagement board meetings. But it felt like it was important to finish those discussions while we were there instead of keep dragging things out. Sometimes it feels like when we drag them out, when we haven't accomplished anything because we don't complete something.
You know, I think that they emphasize for all the board members, especially the new ones. Looking at, I read the minutes and some of you feel that, you know, you haven't made any impact yet. But this onboarding thing, I think has to be looked at from the council all the way down to this. So you know what the expectations are. I was talking to some of the members. We're all at different levels. I'm retired, some are working, some in school. How do you fit that in? You need to know how do you fit that in, and there's ways to do it that we should help y'all with. But the thing is that you don't know that. You don't know what you don't know till you come in. So how to help catch you up on what you don't know so they can help you pace and plan and participate without getting frustrated. But all the years that I've been dealing with this, I've found ways to help me not get frustrated. And some people get frustrated and have those feelings that you have, and then they leave, or they feel you're not doing anything. But, you know, so again, this whole process of onboarding us to look at, and it sounds like council has to be part of that, because that's where it starts. When they nominate somebody to fill a vacant position, they need to know what all that means. And then when the person comes on, we do a quality job of orienting the person so that they can get up to speed and ready to take off. So all of this, while we're still trying to get everyday work done, trying to get this coordinated so that we can be more efficient and effective in whatever we do. So I kind of say that. I know you all come in at different times and it seems overwhelming, but I tell you, there is an approach that can be used because we all have individual ways of doing things. Just a matter of the amount of commitment that you know you can make. You know, and that's based on commitment, based on our bylaws and what our work plan is. So once you understand that, then it helps you a little bit. But I know everybody's trying to make a living. You know, everybody I talked to, I don't think I talked to one person, they said I wasn't busy. So what does that mean? You know, this is another thing that is it just busy work, or is it something that we're doing for a reason and we want to see accomplished a goal? So it depends on, but if busy work for you, it's just adding some more work to you. But if you feel that you're contributing to something and you can see a light at the end of the tunnel, it helps you feel better. So this is something we need to help each other work through. Some of us have been through it. Some of you have never been on board before. We need to help y'all with that because we all got qualities and traits and things that are beneficial to this committee and to the community. So I just kind of wanted to say that based on some of the stuff I was reading and that I think y'all are feeling, you know, and so as you get kind of used to this, hopefully we'll get y'all to speak up. Okay.
Any questions on any of those items for the policy committee? Okay. Last is outreach. I don't have the minutes for that because quite frankly, I didn't have time to get them. Or to type them. I have them, I just don't have them typed. But the outreach committee did meet. There are a couple of things on that agenda that again, I think were really important. It has happened maybe serendipitously, that each committee has talked about the direction of the board independently prior to this conversation and prior to, or independent of hearing about council wanting the same conversation now, which I think is a good thing that we're all sort of thinking and moving in the same direction. Outreach, we talked about a couple of things. First was we started the conversation with how are we going to get people to these meetings, as in our regular board meetings. One of the things that we talked about and sort of set as an action item that I think is already in motion is getting just a standardized informational flyer with all of our meeting dates and locations, since we have a standing location right now, printed. So we can print them if we want to. The department can print some that we can take and put out. People, we can all volunteer to take them to different places, community events, meetings, public spaces, whatever it is, but having a flyer that says community engagement board meets this time, this place, this date. Here's how, here's the address, because we don't have that. It was something that had been in the works, but we never got. So, Nadia and Dale helped track down the template for that. We'll send them the meeting dates. So we have all of that. We have the same location. Print some, bring some to this meeting, or you can print them on your own and distribute them at will. So that led to another conversation about, if we are having these meetings, why are we asking people to come? Because it's not really just about them coming to listen to us have discussions about bylaws, but it is supposed to be a meeting for the public and the community to engage in. So what purpose is the work that we do here serving for them to be here to see it? Which led to a much larger discussion about, again, some of the same things that equity talked about, some of the things that we discussed out in policy and why people should be engaged in the first place. A lot of really good recommendations came out of that. And it is about sort of this identity finding as well. What does this board do? Why are we doing this work? What is the outcome that we're looking for? How do we engage and interact with council at the same time? How are people engaging with us? So on and so on. Some other recommendations came out of that conversation. I will highlight ones that I really, that stick out to me. Anthony, Suzanne, Ramon, please include any of these as well. Suzanne brought up a really great recommendation, in my opinion, on some of this, like identifying who we are, what we do, why we do it, what comes out of it, by offering, we love some research, offering to, or creating a poll or a questionnaire of sorts that goes to city council, I think could go to this board, go out to the public, that asks on its face, who do you think we are? What do you think we do? Or what do you expect from the community engagement board? So without any pretense, it's not saying, based on our bylaws, city council, what do you think we do? It's what in your mind as a new council member, as a new mayor, or as a standing council member that we haven't interacted with, what do you think we do? Same for this board, because we could all be on very different pages about what we think we're supposed to accomplish here. Same for the public. Have you heard of this board? If not, what would you think this board does? If you have heard of it and followed, what do you think that we do or should be doing? All that. I really like that idea, just getting other people's opinions. That doesn't mean we have to follow every one of them, but it is good to just start with what we know that we can know. I don't know if anybody else wants to speak to that. Anything else? I feel like that was kind of the highlight. We also discussed the public comment video. Anthony shared some what I think were really great options for animation. And just like, again, from another outreach perspective on how to be useful, but also show people the work that we're doing. I would have loved to explore that, but I think that identity piece was the major thing. And then we'll be able to utilize some of that in how we choose to move forward with telling people about these meetings and why they should use their time to be here. But if there's anything else that was like really striking, I'll email about it. But majority. Great. Any questions for the outreach committee before we move on from those updates?
What are items from the outreach committee for materials that we use when we go out to the community? That we would be checking out? Did we finalize that kind of stuff. I think staff was working on some things.
So that would have been the collateral piece that tells about like the bifold, not trifold, is what Dale has already gotten to print. And that's what, that was the one that we changed the pictures on and things in. So that's what we have that like specifically talks about the community engagement board.
So we know when we're getting that, when that's gonna be available.
3 days,
So we have
5 days.
35 days,
35 more days.
3
3
to
to
5.
5 days.
Oh, okay, because we got, venues coming up that we're participating in, just to know if they'll be available for anything.
Yeah, we should have it, by the
Can I ask a clarifying question on this? When you say it's ready 3 to 5 days, because I know we made some changes to the last draft that we had, 3 to 5 days, we'll receive another draft to review?
No,
Or-
that's
'cause we
done.
didn't- I don't know what the pictures are. I don't know if that was
So
all the changes to see if those are ones that are, the group agrees on.
yeah, the only change, if I recall correctly, was to the photos, specifically the photo on the front. And I emailed another copy of that with the updated photos and got feedback. I think maybe 3 people gave feedback. So that was confirmed and sent back to print. So those will be printed with the new updated photo, which I can send out again for all to see.
Thank you. I must have missed that.
No problem. Thank you. I sent a lot of emails.
But did we get the final document that went to print?
That's what we're just talking
I
about.
mean, besides the picture, I know we're talking about the photo, but it's the whole document, right?
Yeah, what I sent is the whole thing with the new
Yeah.
photos. And then I think some of them were changed inside, but it was ones that we already liked. So I think they just used the same ones from the inside, but I will resend it so we can take a look again. Action item. Okay. Speaking of that, that was our next piece of old business. It's already to print. So that bifold is what Dale has sent off. We'll have it by our next meeting, possibly by some of our committee meetings. If you're participating in any of the engagement events that the department is doing, you may also see them before that. But that is set. I'm excited to have it in hand. Second piece of old business, we still need to elect a board secretary. Tell you again, I'm not doing this forever. I'm not taking minutes for 2 subcommittee meetings and this meeting. So I believe in all of you and I encourage all of you to explore leadership on this board through serving as the board secretary. I'm trying to make this as appealing as possible. It can be whatever it needs to be currently to make it function for you, but I do want to make sure that as we're going in depth into more discussion and more decision-making, more action, that we have accurate records of what we're doing. I know we haven't reported. I don't trust technology, so I would still like to have them somewhere on a piece of paper. And if you are hesitant about it, just know that if you are elected at the next meeting, you only technically serve until June when we have our retreat. So it would be short term. In that vein, we discussed having a summary of what we talk about in these meetings available to Councilmember Jones to share with council as she goes in between our meetings. We're not doing that until we have a secretary because that's work that I cannot do. And that we just need someone to be responsible for saying, these are 3 bullet points of main topics that we talked about. So that is still an option, just pending secretary.
I have a quick question. With the collateral piece, so I understand the trifold, but then you mentioned something a bit ago that, information with our meetings that we can print out.
Yes.
So the difference would be, one is a bit more detail for the public, talking about our
So-
meetings.
One is a flyer that's just meeting, like a posting of meeting
Okay.
dates. The other is like an evergreen, nicer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So I know that the meetings are being recorded. Would that recording be available for the person who's secretary to transcribe?
As far as I understand, Yes, but Nadia has also mentioned that the transcription can be provided by the recording as well, so we can have a bit of both. That would be a very long transcription since we have such long meetings, but, yes.
Is there like a co-pilot or something connected to the meeting where you can, like Microsoft Copilot, almost like a chat GPT where you can say, summarize the meeting, right?
That's what I will do.
For our, it doesn't.
Okay, okay.
But if we have a tech savvy secretary who would like to utilize any other means of synthesizing that information.
I thought that was a really interesting question.
And I think the thing about these recordings that I've learned in my meetings now is that they don't allow for action items that need following up. You have to have that in writing, so you see what you talked about. And at least you need some notes, highlights, put it like that, highlights from the meeting. So if you have this video, but you have highlights from the meeting, that some people may not look at the video, and then you have your action items that you know at your meeting that you needed to follow up. But if none of y'all take any notes or watch that meeting and I hear some action items, what are you gonna remember? If you don't have them in them, then you're missing that. And I just take notes because I take action items, and that's why then I bring those back up. If I don't see them on the agenda or something like that, but they should already be in some kind of minutes. And so we may be missing something. That's all.
Can more than one person be secretary? We have co-secretary. I mean, could we have more than one person and maybe one person do separate meeting?
I don't know if we can like do that officially, but for example, when Jeff and Veronica were assisting, they would send me what they had and I would do my best to put together what I had and then create a set of that. So I think one person does have to serve as acting secretary because they do also have to work with like attendance and things like that they have to keep up with, but to have an assistant, but have someone else assist, I think is fine. It just wouldn't be like assistant secretary as an elected position.
All right, I'm putting on my glasses.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at Carl and Suzanne. Are you all willing to help?
Help as in help you?
Help be the secretary?
We're us
All
three.
three of us could. Okay, let's try to turn her head. I know you have the skills, and I know I have the skills, but I don't have time to do it every month. But if we could pull it, like, I could take y'all's transcription, pull it in the otter or whatever, create a summary, and then I could take the notes. But I can't promise to do it every month.
I've been. Oh, I've really been thinking about this, considering this. I don't want to get too excited about being the secretary because.
Be excited.
I want to go back to recordings from the meetings that we're still missing the minutes on. Like, I want it to be very formal. I would absolutely welcome the opportunity to work with you. I think you take phenomenal notes. And I appreciate the action items. So if I could, I'll just put my name forward for consideration.
I'll put Suzanne's name forward for consideration. I move Suzanne be the secretary for the community engagement.
Well, you're detailed, and I think it does take I'm not detailed oriented, honestly.
Yeah.
As I should.
So I hear a nomination to elect.
I move the nomination to be closed.
Me too. I second.
The secretary, the president secretary is.
We have to behave in this meeting. Any discussion on that?
It just sound like y'all needed to find the secretary and how the second person is gonna assist or co or whatever that is. Is that right?
Suzanne, do it.
She's a period.
Yeah, period.
Oh, period.
I think for me, especially because I'm a very structured person. I like it formalized. I like a template that way. And I love the action items at the end. I like voting. So anyone that does happen to take notes, that feels that they have the capacity to share that with me, that is helpful because oftentimes when, as you know, when you are in the meeting as a participant at the same time
Yeah.
taking notes, you might miss something. So I would just kind of, happy to take this on and also welcome input, feedback, or any notes that you feel
Yeah.
that would help synthesize this so that these become helpful for us as a tool. And I think that if, done well, then that could be part of the onboarding for people to come in and, say, here's a quick and dirty, and then they know exactly what our action items are and it can help them walk through it. So we can have successful, engaged board members.
Spoken like a true secretary.
Now I move to close the nomination.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please audibly say aye. Not so loud. Any opposition? That is approved unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you. Let's get the
Thank you.
historical minutes going. Let's do that.
Okay, whatever, yeah. Okay. Thank you for that, Suzanne, truly. Last thing on old business is this rotating discussion on changing our process with Portico from community conversations to something else. Our fearless department liaison, Dale, has come up with some, what I think are great, possible name changes. I will read them to you. You will tell me if you like them or not. We will vote on one of them this evening. By God.
Okay.
Option number 1 is neighborhood dialogues.
That's good.
What?
That's good.
Okay. Option number 2, voices of the community. Option number 3, connecting conversations. Option number 4, our neighborhood talks. Option number 5, community exchange.
Sounds like we're going to take 10.
Again, neighborhood dialogues,
Combine two of them.
neighborhood dialogues, voices of the community, connecting conversations, our neighborhood talks, and community exchange.
Can we do maybe neighborhood voices? Because I think a big part of Portico is the voice and hearing from folks. And I love the idea of neighborhood. So the neighborhood dialogue, I just think maybe neighborhood voices combine the two, sort of.
Do we run into any conflicts by moving toward that term?
As in people who are not even neighbor.
Well, I think there's that level of whether or not an individual identifies themselves within or, inside or outside. I am concerned, well, let me say that it raises perhaps an opportunity to collaborate with CACs because they are a little bit more neighborhood oriented kind of a thing. But that's the only sort of like thing that I have kind of a response to in.
Yes, I mean, thinking about the CACs, I've always thought of them as, there's my neighborhood that I live in. But I've always thought of the CAC as being the broader neighborhood, and that's an opportunity to meet your neighbors. And I like having that word in the mix for that reason. Not necessarily tying to anything CACs do, but just sort of that background of CACs in it, giving you this idea that, the folks that live in Carolee Mills are as much my neighbors as the folks across the street. I think is one of the most positive things they did. So I like having that in this title.
Can we read that again? What is it?
So, the options that Dale came up with were neighborhood dialogues, voices for the community, connecting conversations, our neighborhood talks, community exchange, and then Anthony just offered neighborhood voices.
So you said voices of the community or for the community?
Originally, you said.
Of the community, sorry,
It says connecting conversations.
that's correct.
And does our neighborhood talk, is there an S on the end of it?
These are all options. Nothing set in stone.
Feel free to come with you. I just brainstormed that came up with you.
Yeah,
I liked community exchange.
They're already a neighborhood. I mean, the only problem I have with exchange, there's neighborhood exchange, right? The event, or at least there was. in the city.
Yeah.
And the only problem I have with exchange is I think you can, if you talk about dialogue or voice, it's conversation. I think exchange almost seems like maybe we're trading things.
Yeah, when I heard exchange, I
Yeah.
thought swap meet.
Yeah.
Y'all feel like.
And so, yeah, I mean, I really like the word neighborhood, and I like something along the lines of dialogue or voices or conversation, because I feel like that's speaks to the action. I kind of lean towards the voice piece because I feel like that's gonna be the finished product, is these voices. And what we heard in that very first, the quarter code demo were these great voices that you really got engaged with, because you're like, oh yeah, I can't see the person, but it's like, that whole radio is theater of the mind. You start to envision them and what they're doing and how they're involved. And I think that that's what I want this end product to be.
And I'm leaning on that. I'm leaning towards voices of the community. As Jeff said, I kind of lean, when I hear neighborhood, I think more so my neighborhood, the couple of houses around me. I know that you have a different frame of reference as far as, but for me, when I hear neighborhood, I think that's more just my neighborhood. But when I hear community, I think more along the lines of a broader community, and so I like, and to lean on the voice piece, I think, looking at the options, I mean, the main thing we're trying to capture are those voices, are people's thoughts and their voices, which is why I like, either dialogues, voices, or something in there to talk about what we're doing.
And I just want to offer on building on that, I had an initial response to connecting conversations, but then when we actually think about the structure of the engagement itself, like what is actually happening, they may not be connected conversations because it's a random group of people. Similarly with neighborhoods, it's not the way we pull the sample of people together doesn't actually represent, at least as currently proposed, it represents the district, which is that I slice out from the center of the city all the way to the edge. And that's where the neighborhoods part is a little bit of a stumble for me.
So we're gonna eliminate community exchange unless there are any strong proponents for that. Neighborhood dialogues.
I'm with the few folks who've spoken up about the neighborhoods. I think it kind of limits, because it's citywide, I do this communal feel for community. I appreciate the voices perspective because that's what we are trying to hear. But I do think that, and I say this to my child, kind of grown up of why I do something, is well, that person's my neighbor. They're a stranger to me, but they are working in my grocery store. That person's my neighbor. I just don't know where they live, but they live near me. So you are my neighbor. We are all here in this city together. So something really resonates with me about my neighbor, our neighbor, my neighbor's voices. I got them. But I think, and that keeps us, yes, we're a growing city, tens of thousands of people, but neighbor keeps it. And it has that community feel, I feel, without being geographically.
Yeah.
I like, the community connecting conversations. It's something kind of missing, but I like that one the best, only because I started something my company, and it was Safe Conversations. It was a space that allowed us to talk about DE&I topics, pretty much. So I do like conversations and connecting. I feel like, I know what you were saying about it may be a disconnect, but I feel like it is connecting, because if they bring their topic or whatever it is to us, we may not be the final resting place. It may be another department. So we're still connecting their voices or conversation to, it's still going to be a connection of conversation, right? Even if it doesn't land or end with community engagement board, maybe it's the planning. So we will be connecting the conversations that come in. If, I guess, City Councilman Jones had mentioned that we may be the gatekeeper, that was her idea. So we would be connecting. That's my little campaign spirit.
You want to go on liberation.
Did I do well? Okay.
I kind of like that, and in my mind, I had added connecting community conversations.
Liberation.
CC.
And looking at connecting community conversation for a reason, connecting with whoever is gonna lead to in whatever.
Yeah, this is gonna have to fit on a poster, on a flyer, on, so as approachable and succinct as possible.
It's actionable, right?
Voices.
It is, but I feel like you could like just keep going with it. All of them have something to,
Yeah.
you know, a part of them have something to do with what we want to do, but like voices of the community to me sounds like, I mean, everybody wants to have their voice heard some way. So like I would think voices of the community is structured more to what we got going on as far as reaching out to the community.
Yeah, I kind of like that too, because it's also the end product.
Right.
And it opens up an umbrella because we know that there's gonna be a limited pool of people that actually get into the room just by virtue of their numbers. But Voices of the Community provides a larger umbrella that we could do some other engagements to do various learning. You know, whether it be survey-based or it be, you know, community engagement van-based where there are conversations that are happening there. It provides a good, more general description.
It doesn't have to be limited to conversations. It can be other action. Okay. I'm changing my position.
With the votes over here.
I
did, yeah.
really, I like voices, I like community, but I like community voices instead. Because it shortens it, it takes out of those two words. It still encompasses the community and the voices.
You don't have to say, okay.
Community voices, that's like the whole community voices, so you're part of the community, you're free to state your voice, like that.
But I really want to hear what Ramon was thinking when he said, oh, when she first read Neighborhood.
I think anything with neighborhood is probably wrong, because I don't know about y'all, but the neighborhood I live in, people don't even speak, so I think it's kind of redundant, but, I think the voices of the community, that sounds all right. I mean, it's kind of like, it's vast. I mean, it could be multiple communities, right? I mean, as opposed to just focusing on the south side or, you know, I think that's fair. I think that works.
So we have voices of the community or community voices.
But you said that this is going on documents and papers and stuff like that, right?
It'll be how we promote the conversations with Board and Co.
So I guess the shorter the better, I would think, right?
I mean, not necessarily. I want you to be happy with it, but also keeping in mind that this will also sort of be consolidated into a report at the end of it, or our findings. So the community voices report or something of that nature is what's gonna come out of it, which I think is a powerful statement about what we're going to do. Thinking about the end product of like what we're presenting and how people will reference back to it. I'm happy with either, but I just want us to make a decision in the next like 3 minutes.
Could I throw a total kind of, I don't know, off the wall, but Voices of Raleigh Because if you, I like the idea of community, I'm not retracting that, but if we are, say, engaging with, local small business owners, a business owner who lives out in Johnson County, but owns their business here in Raleigh, and they hear community, they just think, where my residence is. And so I think that might be, while it is broader, it is broad, but I think in Voices of Raleigh, it could be even more expansive to businesses.
What if they live in Knightdale? I mean, Knightdale's annexed with Raleigh, right? Pretty much. So, I mean, isn't that kind of like defeat the whole purpose of the community thing? You're kind of excluding a whole area, right? If you.
I feel like it does the opposite almost because it defines what you are asking people to give their community voice about. So like even if I live in like Knightdale, I may work here, but my community is built in Knightdale or in Johnson County, so I may not relate how I feel. But then again, this is only limited to people who live here, so I don't know.
The living room, right?
Yeah,
Of course,
I retract this.
I think when you leave it as community, everybody kind of infers their own idea of what community means.
Exactly.
To some people, the city of Raleigh is my community. To some people, my neighborhood is my community. To some people, Southeast Raleigh is my community. My CAC is my community. And it allows them to put their own
Spin on.
their own limitations on how broad or limited they want community to be. I think when I hear neighborhood, I'm having a very fixed definition of neighborhood. When I hear Raleigh, there's definitely a fixed definition of Raleigh. So that's why I like the idea of community.
I'll put it to you for a decision. Voices of the community or community voices, how we want to move forward.
And then we can always put a subtitle on the report.
Yeah. There's always room for more.
And if there's a specific topic,
That comes up.
Yeah.
I like community voices, I would put it
Community
forward.
voices. Does of the make any difference? Voices of the community or community voices, if you take the out, it's still.
I like that of the community. Again, I'm okay with either. I said I'm okay with either. My vote would be for voices of the community. But I guess.
This is not a motion. I'm gonna ask you for a show of hands for voices of the community. Stand tall.
That said, I feel like it's a choir, right? We're about to
Sound
sing.
like a choir.
The voices of the community.
Sing
On Sunday morning at 6 a.m.
Sorry. Community voices. A show of hands. No. And then I'll leave space for any other recommendations. Okay, great. So we're gonna go with community voices. Thank you all for your input. We'll make whatever necessary changes we have to. I don't think there's many that are like official. We haven't done anything. Great, community voices. No, because I don't think we've voted on that name. If we did, I don't know. Okay. If you want to, so it's official, because I just asked, I'm just making sure. Clearly. Okay, that's all of the old business, new business, so we can sort of end on this. First thing, Jeff mentioned this earlier, so we have had the same script for like 4 months. If we're at the final stages of recording, I think we're actually finally there. I will knock on wood and say that. But Nadia has given us clearance to go ahead and schedule a sort of kickoff date with Portico. So this would be an introduction to what this process is going to look like. It can be workshops, introductions into workshops that they'll offer. It can be introductions into how to start the process. She had more detail on what's included, but I can't remember how long she said it would be.
Her proposal was 3 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, think about, I know she reached out to Portico, to Ethan at Portico and asked, could we do it on February 28th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Okay.
Ethan hasn't gotten back to us yet on that. But we are very close. It's in the approval queue. Yeah, we got the money, we just gotta get it, the docu signed. And final step is city attorney's approval, but we should be good.
So there are two options for that kickoff date, and the idea would be for us to be able to participate in
We
that,
only asked about this one.
not the 20th.
Yeah, just said the
That
20th.
correct?
That's correct, from what I know, she asked about.
Oh, I think I said that already. Okay, there's one option, unless we have to do something drastic, but the idea, again, is for us to be able to participate that. I hate to ask you to spend more time or have an additional meeting, but this is kind of the big thing that we've been working up to. So if you can come to it, you can participate, it would be virtual. That would be great on February 28th. And
Tentatively.
tentatively, and we're waiting on contract.
It will also be recorded, so if that is not a possibility, you still have access to the information regardless of when it's scheduled.
Do we know what time?
10 to 1 is what we asked for. Preliminary salaries.
It's 10 to 1.
10 to 1 is what we requested. So again,
When will
February 28th,
we know?
whenever they get back to us, because they have not said, yeah.
Yeah.
Nadia put that request in on Monday, I think. When Equity Committee met, but we're just trying to push the door open and start work, and they've agreed that even if we don't have the final stamp that's already done, they're comfortable with moving forward as we can. So put it tentatively on your calendar as we get more information on that, whether it's timing or we need a different date. Because that one doesn't work out for them, we'll let you know. But if you can join for any period of time, that would be great. If not, like Jeff said, it will be recorded, and at least a couple of us will be there to sort of relay information and try to get us moving. Any questions on that? And also hopefully from that means we go into March, in our committees being able to do some of the work that we are responsible for. So facilitators thinking about locations, et cetera, et cetera. The next thing on the agenda for new business is this amendment to the bylaws. So this throws back to the policy committee meeting. If you want to take a look at those minutes. We have had this long standing discussion about attendance, commitment to being in meetings, et cetera, et cetera. And in looking at some other board and commission bylaws, I think we have stronger bylaws than several other boards and commissions, which was surprising once we got.
Some of them have bylaws.
Yeah, it was interesting. Interesting. So, pat on the backs to everybody that did that. But, in an effort to help, clarify for one, and to sort of create a little bit more structure around our attendance expectations, there was an amendment by Dr. Lane proposed to section 3 of the bylaws that addresses excused absences. I should have brought this up already, but I will pull up the bylaws to read to you what it says right now. If I can find it quickly.
Or is it a replacement?
It's a replacement. So section 3, excused absences currently reads, an excused absence shall be recorded in the minutes of the meeting for which the absence has been excused. To request an excused absence, a board member should communicate the absence to the board secretary in writing ahead of the board meeting. One more time. An excused absence shall be recorded in the minutes of the meeting for which the absence has been excused. To request an excused absence, a board member should communicate the absence to the board secretary in writing ahead of the board meeting. So that's what it reads in our bylaws currently. The proposed amendment reads, this is section 3 again, an excused absence shall be recorded in the minutes of the meeting for which the absence has been excused. In order for an absence to be
excused from